The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Welcome to it. Tuesdays here at Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Elijah is feeling the near 40-degree temps here in the capital city. Dude, you are rocking T-shirt and shorts.
I got bowling league after this.
Aha.
And you don't want to be restricted by long sleeves and pants at bowling league. It's an important week. City bowling tournament is next week, so you got to make sure you get into rhythm tonight to be ready for city bowling tournament next week. So.
Has anyone ever went galooly in your bowling league where they put a hit out, a guy knows a guy who knows a guy, and all of a sudden there's a wrist injury?
Oh, to go like Nancy Kerrigan?
Yes.
Yeah,
Galooly's the guy who did the hit.
See, I always remember the name Nancy Kerrigan. Because, yeah. But anyway.
Well, that's who got galooly'd.
Yeah.
Tanya Harding used to sit. She's at one time sat in this chair to my left.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
She was in town doing some sort of appearance. This is damn near 20 years ago.
Oh, I did not know this.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no. Anyway, long story short, no, there's never been any thing like that. We did have, I think it was it Tom last year? No, who was it? Todd last year. He had surgery on his shoulder. His son came and filled in for him. And I don't know if there was some sort of hit behind the scenes I don't know about, but no.
Did Todd's son perform?
Oh yeah, he was good. He was solid.
Okay.
He was solid. Good.
But he may have hurt the old man.
Potentially, I don't think so, but you never know.
Oops, Dad fell down the stairs again.
I have not personally witnessed any hits being put out in the bowling league. We're currently sitting in second place, so we might be the ones putting out hits here if we remain in second place for too long, but hopefully not.
Well, go find John Goodman's character to scare the opposing team in bowling league. 489-1240, 489-1240, numbers to get in on Hail Varsity, 800-825-5865, where you hear us across the Hail Varsity Radio Network. Watch the show. Couple of ways to do that. The Hail Varsity YouTube channel. Like and subscribe to that. You can catch the show there. Podcast, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, and the Hail Varsity Radio Twitter feed at HVarsity Radio. Give that a follow. Find Elijah on Twitter at Herbalescence, at Schmidt_radio for me. Without further ado, let's get you to the starting five. Our roll call, who's in the stream, and our top five get the shout out. Anthony is in. He just nudges out Brandon. Jeff checks in at 3. Black Hills Brennan in at 4. Crew checks in at 5. Dion right there as well. And then Hungry Wood Chip is off the bench, Vinnie Johnson style at 6. And we have Eat Beef. He's back. I'm finally back here, boys. Good to hear and see you again, Eat Beef. Good work. We'll take some thoughts on Nebraska-Ohio State. Big ball game. Roger and Ty are also in. Anonymous checks in as well. You can email the show, Chris at HailVarsity.com. Big basketball game. And, you know, wearing the undefeated sweater. Nebraska has not lost in Lincoln when I've worn this sweater. Not that I root, but I think this is important. I like the vibe Nebraska's on. Post-Rutgers, clearly a gutty win against Northwestern, who's an 11 seed. Right now, Nebraska's projected right now at several different crop reports out, but a 7-10 matchup in Omaha is what I saw last night. That would be great. They would take on Kansas, presumably. If they get that 7-10 upset, Nebraska the 10 seed. But right now they're that 11 seed, 10 seed, and you don't want to screw up to Ohio State. Ohio State's one of those teams you're trying to box out, pun intended, that to taking probably that final Big Ten spot. Maryland is air quote gettable. Michigan's air quote gettable. And Wisconsin is another big pelt, probably a 2 seed right now, unless they fade. And those are really nice resume boosters, but you're supposed to kind of do that at home. Nebraska has road opportunity, but they can't screw it up. I just feel like they're going to lose one at home, Elijah. We'll get into our predictions. Eddie Markowski is coming up in about 10 minutes. Mitch Sherman with us in the 5 o'clock hour. We don't get out of here till 6. The tip-off is at 6 at PBA, which means we are peacocking tonight. And Connor Clark will check in with us from PBA in hour 2. Some Big Ten football to check into as it's been the first week. How are things going? Who's here? Who's here to make an impact early in their career for Nebraska football? We'll dive into that. Now, we got to ask our friends in the stream and the listeners, the wonderful listeners of Hail Varsity. We have done steak and a beer bet forever. We haven't really kept a close eye on score. We'll do a steak and a beer bet tonight with Nebraska-Ohio State. Now, Elijah, you have found the dreaded Longhorn Cup. Okay, we are going to show folks in the stream, and Elijah appropriately has the coffee mug that is a Texas Longhorn coffee mug. Horns are down.
Correct orientation.
It is the correct orientation. And are we going to make the loser take a shot out of that coffee cup the following episode of Hail Varsity, whoever fails?
And take a good look in there for the stream listeners. You can see this is full of ink and hair, maybe some remnants of coffee. I think there's some whiteout.
I think there might be some tobacco juice that is dry.
This cup is nasty. Mm-hmm. This cup is nasty, and my fear with taking a shot is that alcohol and its cleaning properties will then go and lift up some of this grossness from the bottom of it.
We have to clean it before we take a shot.
Do we, though?
Yes.
I think
it's bad enough you're taking a shot out of a Longhorn Cup.
Imagine how much worse it'd be for the grossness.
Yeah.
We get someone throwing up on stream.
Well, Elijah's not in today. Why? His eyes are swollen shut and he can't talk.
He's throwing up. He's had the runs all day.
He's in the back of the room with a whiteboard trying to write and respond. It's not a text message for Elijah.
Elijah is he's at home doing 8 Hail Marys.
He is. He's hugging the toilet. So we can pick great alcohol. I know it's air quote steak and a beer bet, but we can also, I mean, I'm sure the only guy in eastern Nebraska that still buys McCormick's is Uncle Andy. He might have some of that plastic bottle vodka.
I was just thinking we could go double shot of Everclear before we get fired for being drunk. Maybe a full mug of Everclear. You can sip on it throughout the show?
Yeah. No. So Anonymous checks in. Jim Harbaugh is 10 months younger than Tom Osborne was when he retired from coaching. Harbaugh's in the news. Things are heating up between him and the Chargers. Listen, I hope he goes because I'm sick of this dance every year. Every year it's a dance between him and the NFL. He wanted to stick and stay and deliver a title to his alma mater. He's negotiating things that are not fireable in his contract. Well, I can't be terminated for any incriminating things you may or may not find based on the COVID recruiting. So I think he's out the door. Does he bring his defensive coordinator Jesse Minter with him? It's got to happen for the Chargers. They have all the talent in the world. They've just botched hires the last 3 coaching cycles since old Run the Ball Marty. I loved Marty. Schottenheimer was awesome with Kansas City, and Marty was the man in San Diego. They just couldn't get over that New England or Denver hump. Well, you fast forward to now, they're loaded on offense. They've still got skill on defense. You gotta make this happen, in my opinion.
But the concern, I think, whenever you look at the Chargers, is not about the talent that they have on the field. It is about
division,
salary cap. Khalil Mack, who is not performing up to his salary, is taking $38.5 million from the cap. You have an aging Keenan Allen taking $34.7 million, and often injured Joey Bosa taking $36.6 million. And you have Mike Williams taking $32 million. He's been pretty much worth that. Derwin James takes up $19 million. you got issues with this roster, especially near the top, where there's not easy answers. Maybe you can trade for some late round and have another team take on that cap. Maybe you just cut him and take the dead cap hit. I know with Khalil Mack, it's $15 million. With Keenan Allen, it's $11 million. You have some issues with what the cap is going to be in terms of this being a quick turnaround for the Chargers. Obviously, with Justin Herbert, I think a lot of coaches out there would be excited about that possibility, but there's some work that needs to be done in the short term to free yourself up just a little bit of room so that the coach can come in and build a roster that they want. I know they have to work hand in hand with the GM, but those are my concerns with the Chargers and this job for Harbaugh. I'm not sure this is a one-year turnaround just because you have Justin Herbert, just because you have the quarterback. You have some cap issues you have to get sorted out first.
Well, and here's the thing. Harbaugh has not screwed up quarterback. I know he had some transfer issues at Michigan, but with two different quarterbacks, he went to the playoff, McCarthy and McNamara. He recruited Andrew Luck to Stanford, right? So of everybody who whiffed in the state of Texas, in the Houston region, Harbaugh did not. He got him to Stanford, and he's the guy who took Alex Smith again, who took the Niners to the AFC Championship game. They fell to Seattle. What's he do? He drafts Kaepernick, and he unleashes Kaepernick, pre-injury, of course, and he is incredible with that pistol offense. I mean, Harbaugh just gets quarterback right. And it's not that Herbert's been bad, but I think the ceiling's a little higher for him, and I think you pair Harbaugh with Herbert, you've got a big-time contender. And listen, Harbaugh isn't afraid to stay and fight at Michigan, but his heart is in the NFL. He's won a college championship. He was a bad first half away against his brother 10 years ago in the Super Bowl. And San Diego's the place that, well, not Los San Diego, but the Chargers are the team that finished out his career with. He got his start with the Raiders, and then he was also doing work with the Chargers. So he likes the West Coast. He's familiar with it. And when the times we've talked to Tom Rathman, I mean, Tom always talked about the culture with us. And Rathman being part of that staff with San Fran and the Niners, he lived that culture and understands it, and it's grown up, adult, do your job, and the evaluations have been pretty good. Again, in that window we saw with San Francisco, he had some ups and downs in Michigan, but righted the ship, and they've been incredible. It's always been about physicality and just being the tougher football team. That's how you win in any league, and that's why I think this math adds up. What player are you most excited for, not named Raiola, Elijah, in the world of college football in Nebraska? We'll talk with Mitch Sherman in a little less than an hour about this. But you have 22 players, 6 transfers here already. And am I going to be right by saying Makuza? I mean, Mizuka. I will get that right by spring game. Mizuka, the offensive lineman. I mean, is that who you're kind of interested in? His addition to the O-line? Do you look at the wide receivers as kind of a region that can really use some elder statesmen, and this winter conditioning's big for the receiver room? I mean, you've got areas of development, and you've got some portal guys you're sprinkling in, the guys that have finally left and graduated.
Well, one thing I'll say is what I've seen both in the All-American Bowl and the Polynesian Bowl is that Carter Nelson, despite the fact he's not going to be here for spring, might be a guy that you're turning to this fall, needing some production from. I'm not sure he's ready to be the inline blocking tight end that you hope he can be, a la Brock Bowers at Georgia, where he's just as dangerous blocking. But you put Carter Nelson in the slot, he's got the athleticism and the size to out-jump, out-body defensive backs, and he's got the speed as it stands right now to outrun linebackers in the Big Ten. Even though he's not going to be here this spring, that's a guy I circle as being like a wow-type newcomer, a guy that can come in and really make an impact freshman year. So you might lump him in with Raiola, but I'm with you. Mizuka is the guy. He's a plug-and-play starter. You're excited to see what he can bring to that offensive line room. And then one more is Jamal Banks. I really like his contested catch ability. I think he brings a unique aspect to the offense that you probably haven't had since Stanley Morgan, that guy that you can just chuck it up to, and you know what? he turns 50-50 balls into 75-20 balls, and you feel pretty good about his ability to go up and bring down, I should say, a contested catch. You haven't had that in the offense. It was something that was sorely lacking last year and really for about the past 5 years that really didn't have that. You kind of had it with Omar Manning, but Manning never really put it all together. That's a piece that you haven't had, and I'm excited to see what the Husker offense can do with a guy like Jamal Banks.
Well, Crew checks in when it comes to suggestions on alcohol to pour in that Texas Cup for the loser of the steak and the beer bet. Rumplemints.
Rumplemints, 2 words, but I see.
Yeah, our old buddy Scott always buys us a shot of Rumplemints when he comes and visits the show on the road.
Well, how about Crew getting back to the bowling alley, saying he puts hits on himself at the bowling alley when he drinks one too many personal pitchers and can't perform up to par. I feel that.
No, well, I got to shoot down Rumplemints. All right, we're already drinking out of a Texas Cup. It's got to be a clean Texas Cup. All right? Call me soft, call me weak, call me whatever you want. But listen, we're already doing something that may be unforgivable in the state of Nebraska, and that is having a Texas logoed item.
This is a punishment.
It is.
You have to make it hurt a little bit. So I'm going to suggest Cuervo.
Okay. Lime?
No lime. It has to be punishment, Schmitty. No lime, no salt.
Can we talk to folks about a body shot, perhaps?
No.
No, not you.
I'm not taking a body shot for you, Schmitty. Never.
I'm not letting that happen. Eddie Markowski's coming up.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it, it's Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager. Let's bring in the pride of Ord, Husker basketball standout, assistant over at Pius X. Andy Markowski back with us. Andy, you got a ton of basketball going on this week. How you doing?
Doing well. So, no, it's that time of the year, right, where most levels are in conference play. A lot of big games, a lot of fun games to follow.
Well, let's get your take on the Northwestern win before we get into Ohio State tonight. Pretty gritty, and Andy, Nebraska just seems to have an answer at home, either with some big shots made or getting some stops defensively, both in the case Saturday against Northwestern.
Yeah, that's what home court, is supposed to be. I think the crowd has been, really good this year, and certainly, carries you maybe through some spells where you're not playing great or the shot's not going. You can rely on that energy, and and certainly the timely shot making at home. We certainly have shot the ball better and less scoring droughts at home, and if they're going to position themselves for an NCAA tournament, winning a tough game like Northwestern at home is what they're going to have to do the back half of the Big Ten play.
Andy, how impressive was it to you what Nebraska did out-rebounding Northwestern despite not having Juwan Gary? And the official availability report has come out for tonight's game against Ohio State. He's officially questionable, so we'll see if he's a go or not. But what did that show you, Nebraska winning on the boards and winning that game without a guy like Juwan Gary?
Yeah, certainly there's been stretches where we haven't rebounded it well. Gary is very active on the offensive backboard. I thought, Alec, some games I think Josiah hurts them where he doesn't really shoot it great. It's hard to get defensive team spread. I think against Northwestern, playing two bigs, not only helps us offensively, but, goes back to the rebounding. I thought, both are bigs held up, and then you put Williams in at the 3. I thought the size and length of our front line really bothered Northwestern. It was a big reason why we won.
Andy, what do you believe about Nebraska as the road adventures still loom? The home court's the home court, but what can this team still do in your mind here the rest of January and into February?
Well, I think the schedule sets up for them. I was reading something that if you look at the current strength of schedule metrics, we have the second easiest Big Ten schedule down the stretch, right? So you hope that gives you maybe a few winnable road games. Yeah, I think you have to look at each game independent. I'm not real big on blanking them all together. Certainly the Minnesota game, second half was disappointing. Rutgers, they had stretches where they were really good and stretches where they were bad. I think the Iowa game was just the timing of the schedule. But, I do think they have some games. I think they're, at Michigan and at Maryland, I believe. I think they have some games that potentially they can be competitive and win on the road, which I think is a metric that the tournament is going to look at. The K-State win on the road shows them that they can do it. It's not like they're 0-for on the road, but I think beating Purdue is a huge metric point that you can play with some of the top teams in the country. I think non-conference is another one that we were okay in. So the ability to prove that we can win on the road, I think, is the next step this team needs to make to kind of secure themselves on the right side of the bubble.
Andy, what's more important in your mind as you look towards the latter half of the conference slate? Is it going and getting a couple on the road, or is it maintaining your near perfect record at home? Well, what do you think is more important whenever you look at NCAA tournament consideration coming here towards the end of March?
Yeah, I mean, if you win all your games at home, that would mean that you picked up some quad one wins, right? You got Wisconsin still coming in at home, so that's easier. If they could go undefeated or even lose one at home and then go pick up one on the road. So both are important. If you told me that we'd win all our home games, we'd be in the tournament. But the odds are that maybe Wisconsin comes in here and beats you. So it puts a little pressure that you've got to be able to go on the road and in those 4 or 5 teams that are really competing for that 5th or 6th spot to get into the Big Ten, into the NCAA tournament. You probably got to go on the road and beat one of those teams.
Eddie, what do you think about Ohio State tonight? Vegas says 3.5. Sounds like it might be another tight one. Lots of scoring and athleticism, some toughness too with Ohio State. They have a problem though on the road.
Yeah, that's another team that I think are pretty talented. Playing. A little bit more consistent than they had played. Good win against Alabama, then stubbed their toe against a team like Michigan. So, you mentioned the inconsistencies on the road. It's a team that I think, matches up pretty well to Nebraska. Nebraska matches up to them. I'd love to see, Gary be able to play. We're just not very deep without him. You pick up some foul trouble. You really don't have a lot of players that have had success at this level when you go deeper into that bench. So, it's a game against a team that's right there with you in standings. I think they're one game, back of us with a very similar, overall record. And, I think Ohio State will be right in that 5th, 6th, 7th mix, when the season gets done.
Andy, we'll to women's basketball here in just a second. A big matchup with Iowa coming this weekend. But first, I got to ask you, do you have a Peacock subscription I can borrow tonight? Is that possible?
You radio guys make all the money. I think Peacock's only $5 or $6. I think people can afford to jump on it. I do have one. I've watched a lot of games on it. Plus, they have some old WWF, some of the big events. So I was messing around one day and uncovered that. So there's all kinds of value on Peacock outside of watching the Huskers.
Andy Markowski for Peacock. Andy
Markowski for No Charity for Elijah.
No, Andy's like, you're not ripping my subscription. Who was your tag team or who was your wrestler back in the WWF days? Who did you like?
I like you said, as a kid, got into it, but I was always a big Road Warriors fan. So Animal and Hawk, you can't go wrong with them as a duo.
Last wrestling question, and on a good night, who could do more damage? Or a better way to ask this question, could Danny Nee have touched Andre the Giant's beer drinking record?
Yeah, Danny was very good at drinking, but I think just the sheer size of Andre might give him a slight advantage. But I think we all knew the competitiveness in Coach Nee, and he would have gave it a good try. But I don't think in the end he probably could beat the man, the eighth wonder of the world.
Eddie, let's talk about the topic that's been. I know Nebraska heads to Iowa. Caitlin Clark and a fan collided. What's your take? What's your view? You've lived it both ways. As you know, the court storming topic. You've been on teams that have had that jubilation, and then you've also, I don't know that you were court stormed, but you've been harassed by different teams and student sections before. So what's your read on what happened, and going forward, do you think the Big Ten or the NCAA will respond with court storming?
Yeah, it's just, you don't want to take it away. I do think, what makes it a fun event for the students. And we did, I think Creighton, when they beat us in 90.
Did they? Okay.
When it was 97, I remember having a little bit of an altercation, getting off the court with a student. It certainly, as Matt Painter said, I think it poses a variety of risk, right? I mean, you got people running. Clark obviously, got ran into and collided. You also have a ton of emotion in a big game, right? You got a team just lost, and you have students, that maybe could say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing. So I certainly understand the risk that's involved. I don't know how you control it without just getting a numerous amount of security people, which there's costs associated with that. I think the SEC financially penalizes a team if they allow it in football. So it's just a slippery slope. I don't want to see it go away. I think it's part of it. I think, there's things that Iowa could have done better and not get fragmented where, you got to kind of stay together as a group. So, I think there's probably some responsibility for the teams that are guests to make sure that you have some protocol in place to get your team off the court safely as well. I mean, coaches are smart. They're trying to control every variable. So I don't think the responsibility just falls on, the home event staff or the home team. I think visiting teams have to have some type of a strategy of how they're going to get their team off the court as well. So, I'm sure smart people are looking at it, but, just to blanket it and say it can't happen or won't happen, I think is a wrong decision as well.
I don't even think you can stop it. I mean, not to step on your
toes. No,
going here, but
can't.
how do you stop 5,000 people storming a court with your 15 security people around the court?
No,
I don't think you can.
And listen, the security folks are great people, but they're not going to throw down. I mean, they're there to help you out and verbally tell you what to do, not physically.
They're not the Avengers.
Tell you what to do. Andy, I want to go back to 97. What happened between you and a student? I mean, can you take us back if you don't mind?
Oh, well, I remember getting awfully wide with one of my elbows as, we were hitting the tunnel that was against the student crowd, right? So I just remember kind of swinging an elbow and glancing it off of a student's head, running, and that was immature of me and something I look back on. But when you grew up with that rivalry, that was the first time that they had beat us, and, you're trying to get off the court and these guys are, running and getting in your face. That's the next thing that can happen. Just the Caitlin Clark thing was a freak timing of an accident, but you also have alcohol involved. You have, people, rushing the court off of an emotional loss. And, I think that's setting up for a player to get in some type of altercation with a fan as well. And, that's just another area that we probably haven't looked at that could happen.
And before we get you out of here, we need your preview of what the Husker women face whenever they head to Iowa City on Saturday. Obviously, everyone knows about Caitlin Clark and just how good the Iowa women's basketball team is. What is the Husker women's task on Saturday?
Yeah, certainly a team that played in the finals a year ago that are, is playing really, really good basketball. I know they, were upset on the road, blew a 12-point lead to lose in overtime to a really good Ohio State team. So it'll be a tall task. You're going to have to go and play really well, and maybe hope that Caitlin does not have a great game. She's a generational talent, very hard to guard, makes the other players better. It's a game that you test yourself. It's why you play in the Big Ten against some of the best teams in the country, and Iowa's right there, and we get them twice, so you're going to have a chance to play them on the road, which I don't know the last time they've lost there. I don't know if they have under Caitlin, but then you get them about 3 weeks later at home in Lincoln, which is already sold out. So it makes it fun, but the Nebraska group's going to have to play more consistent and find more offense than what they've been able to find over the last 2 weeks if they want to be competitive in Iowa City.
Andy Markowski with his standout Husker, the pride of Ord, at Markowski_Andy. Andy, take care. Best of luck. Thanks for the time today.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you at Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager. Moonbots made its in. KC for Prez says we're sick. Listen, I have made the executive decision that the Longhorn Cup will be cleaned and the loser picks what shot punishment the loser, has to take the next day on the stake in the beer bet.
What did you do to get executive privilege besides starting
I'm reading the ad.
15 years and reading the ad.
I'm reading the ad for Dyer Law that talks about personal injury or workers' compensation. Either way, either way, Elijah is could serve me with personal injury or workers' compensation if it goes wrong.
Why are you so confident you're going to win?
Why
do you care so much?
I'm not going to serve you. Not going to. But Dyer Law, there to take care of you when it comes to personal injury. If you've been hurt in a personal injury accident, you can always count on Dyer Law to provide you with that helping hand when you need it, no matter what you're dealing with. Dyer Law, give them a ring today at 402-393-7529 or visit dyer.law to chat with a trusted professional about your personal injury claim. Dyer.law, dyer.law. That's 402-393-7529.
Actually, I have the best idea. All right? We get 6 different alcohol options for this shot. We roll a 6-sided die, and you let odds decide what you're going to drink.
We bring in gambling, too, huh?
Yes.
That could work.
And then if you don't like your choice, you can go double or nothing. And you have to take 2 of whatever you get on the next one.
So, yeah, okay. My record's been pretty stellar. Yeah, it has been. And part of that record has been letting you pick. And I go, sure, why not? I'll just take whatever.
That's been tradition of the show for a long time. Whoever picks first loses.
Yes. Kevin chimes in on the stream. You're welcome to watch the show. Hail Varsity YouTube channel, Hail Varsity Radio, Twitter at HVarsity Radio. Open phones here till 5. Mitch Sherman coming up. Great show as always. Thank you, Kevin. Men's basketball needs to win all their remaining home games to have a legit shot at the big dance. Don't disagree. I don't think that happens. I think Wisconsin could be tough. I think tonight's a problem, potentially. Maybe hedging or hinting with the stake in the beer bet a little bit later. That said, I think they can go get some road wins, and that's just asinine for me to say out loud. That said, Nebraska's played well enough to win and be 2-2 on the road. Okay, they should figure it out. Gary needs to be healthy. Gary needs to be ready to go, and you can't rush that with that strain. So,
and whenever you look at how Nebraska's schedule ends, you have 2 remaining teams that are top 25 teams with Wisconsin and Illinois. Mm-hmm. And Illinois looks like they're more dangerous.
You go get one at Illinois, God love you, but that's a hope.
But you look at every other game, Nebraska should be at least competitive. I'm not going to say expected to win because of the struggles on the road, but Nebraska's got a shot in, I'd say, every other game besides those. They still have a shot against Wisconsin. I think we can probably chalk up at Illinois as a loss. It's a tough place to go win.
They could surprise you, too.
And Illinois is going to be coming on strong. What's his name just came back? I can't remember. I don't know why his name's escaping me here.
You're right.
But he got the big standing ovation the night. He's coming back. That looks like a loss.
That was a horrible look.
But you have those in back-to-back. It's Wisconsin Thursday at home and then Illinois Sunday on the road. Those are your 2 remaining top 25 teams.
Handle tonight. Go steal one at Fear the Turtle. And then let's talk February.
And you got to get the ones that you lost on the road. You really got to get back. You got to get back Minnesota whenever they come to town. Wisconsin, you'd really like to have whenever they come back. It means
they're
a lot
just
more
a pain in the neck
that
matchup for everybody.
And then Rutgers comes to town as well. If you can get Rutgers back, Minnesota, and at least be competitive with Wisconsin at home, if not, go get that win. I really like Nebraska's tournament resume. If you can go get those teams that you lost to on the road, get them whenever you're at home, you at least have the argument.
Here's the fear, and this is not just a Nebraska thing. This is a Big Ten thing. You're going to have an off night, and you're going to get stung. Purdue has no business getting blown out by Nebraska. Nebraska played a great game that night. They were the better team. But Purdue got worked by Northwestern. Those are only 2 losses, right? They've murdered everybody else pretty emphatically. So you're going to have a sleepwalking moment either at home or on the road. This league's not going to get what they traditionally get into the dance. That said, they are a tough out, home or away. They're going to bring in an opponent. Could be a Penn State. Could be hot one night. Northwestern's a nightmare to deal with. Maryland won at Illinois last weekend. So there's no easy teams.
And if there is a positive from Nebraska's road performances, you talked about sleepwalking on the road. There's really only a game and a half where Nebraska was sleepwalking. You could argue Wisconsin was, but I think that's just a really, really good Wisconsin team that took advantage of what Nebraska was giving them defensively. You were sleepwalking against Iowa. You looked like you were hungover from the win against Purdue, and you sleptwalked for the second half against Minnesota, and they come back to sting you in that one.
And you didn't finish the job against Rutgers.
But it wasn't sleepwalking. That just happens on the road.
Nebraska's got to figure out something, okay, from their perimeter defense. People go off on them from three-point land at their own gym. When Nebraska's on the road, three-point defense, it's not that Nebraska's not trying. They're just not great at it. I'd rather die by 2 points in the paint than get killed by 3, but even Rutgers had a season-high three-point mix.
Well, I see Fred's argument, though, and it's tough whenever this is your form.
Fred
to go
knows
in on the road.
Basketball a hell of a lot more than I do, so I'm not challenging
to
him.
shoot better from 3 at home than they do on the road. But I think Fred's gamble this season with that defense has been we're a better three-point shooting team than you. And I think for most of the teams in the Big Ten, that checks out. It's like, you know what? If we get as many three-point looks as we give you, we're going to win this basketball game. Hasn't always been the case.
When you go 4 for 29.
I mean, Iowa really kicked your ass from 3. Wisconsin kicked your ass from 3.
You were blindfolded with a cigarette shooting the 3 at Iowa.
But for the most part, I think that's what Fred's game plan this season is you know what? We're going to give you some looks from 3, and we're just going to expect that we're a better three-point shooting team than you. And if we get as many good looks as you end up getting against our defense, we're going to collapse down and we're going to beat you with the three-point game. And it hasn't worked, especially on the road, but it's worked pretty well at home. Well, that was the game plan against Purdue, and you shot the hell out of the ball against Purdue, and you win.
So did Purdue from 3. They were great. Real quick, Keona Wilhite update. The former Washington signee, the edge out of Tucson, being pursued. Now, you know he visited Michigan State with an official last weekend, 6'5", 230-pounder. Made his way to Lincoln on Sunday to begin his official visit. Super talented linebacker. And, he is somebody that I think took off today. He was able to check out the facility, the campus, saw the city of Lincoln, checked out and hung out with the coaches on the visit. You know what? The constant he has liked has been the facilities. He mentioned that quite a bit with Nebraska. Nebraska has the biggest and the best new facilities. Every facility at the schools he's visited are nice. That won't affect his decision much, but in comparison, Nebraska is quite amazing. I'm paraphrasing. Really good story from On 3 here. The most critical part of that official visit, the time spent with the Nebraska coaching staff, that is a game changer for Nebraska. You've got a high-level player. You've had high-level edge guys, young people, go really perform well early in their career. The Lenharts and the Princewells are 2 ringing examples, which means Nebraska rotates. Tony White gets people on the field, and they go perform. They have a role even early in their career. They get engaged. We'll wind down hour 1 at Hail Varsity.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
We'll check in with Connor Clark. He is on site for us at PBA about 5:25. Mitch Sherman here in about 10 minutes. Get his thoughts on some Husker football. Reminder, it is go time with the Supernovas tomorrow, 7 o'clock, CHI against the Atlanta Vibe. Pro volleyball in Nebraska, and witness world-class talent as Omaha, the Supernovas set to hook up with the Atlanta Vibe. The first ever Pro Volleyball Federation match. Be there for it. Supernovas and their roster includes NCAA champions, All-Americans, Olympians, and join the volleyball movement sweeping across the country and see your Major League Volleyball team, the Omaha Supernovas, supernovas.com. That's where you log on, and that's where you get your single match tickets. That's where you get your season tickets. Really awesome to see that News Channel Nebraska is going to be televising this first match, and the best voice in America with volleyball is John Baylor, and he is doing the call on TV for it. So that is incredible. JB, love the man, and he is as good as it gets, and that's so cool that He's going to be a part of history with the Supernovas. That's really awesome. I know Hurrdat Sports and your friends up in Omaha are going to be all over coverage of that tomorrow with CHI. Stop by the Hurrdat Sports Bar. You got the La Vista location. You have the Gretna location. Get yourself a beer, get some wings, get that Bang Bang sauce, and then get to CHI. It's real easy. Elijah, we will dive further into some of the roster thoughts from Mitch Sherman and Nebraska football. We may get a read and a feel from Mitch on Nebraska basketball tonight. Connor Clark has given us a heads up. You've got Gary stretching out right now at PBA. He's got the old calf protector, that sleeve thing going on his calf, which is big, and he makes me feel a lot better. But the risk reward, you need him healthy the rest of the season. How tweakable is this injury again? That's what I worry about. But it's been about a week, so you need him. You need him in his offense. You need him in his toughness. You need him in his rebounding. And tonight will be all about rebounds and turnovers for Nebraska.
And I am confident in saying that if he's a go tonight, it will not be a full load for Juwan Gary. It would be some sort of minutes restriction. I kind of like we saw with Rink a couple weeks ago. He was on a minutes restriction. They got him in important times.
Get a rebound on a missed free throw, that important time.
Yeah, it's like, we're up by 3 with 3 minutes remaining in this game, and they're at the free throw line. Juwan, we need you out there. We need you out there for defensive possession. You pick and choose your moments and don't put too much of a load on him. You wonder if that's the game plan tonight, but Juwan at least warming up and being out there for a shoot-around and getting the body moving. Big step forward, and I'm not willing to forecast that he will play tonight, but it does feel to be trending in that direction.
We will send Connor Clark with his laptop down to the floor, and we'll just have Connor ask Juan, hey, how you feeling tonight?
You seen that clip from the Nuggets broadcast where they ask Scott Hastings down on the floor, like, is JaMychal Green playing tonight? He goes, let me ask him. And he turns around and yells at JaMychal, you playing tonight? You playing? And he shakes his head, no. And no, he's not playing tonight. That's what we need from Connor
You
tonight.
heard it here first. Be sure to get the podcast, tell a friend, and download Hail Varsity, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, and subscribe and like the Hail Varsity YouTube channel. You can watch the show that way, Hail Varsity Radio, Twitter, give that a follow. At HVarsity Radio, Mitch Sherman, The Athletic, kicks off Hour 2. It's Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager.
It's that time.
Psst. Hey, Mitch. Mitchie. We're looking for you, pal.
Mitch Sherman from The Athletic, talking Big Red.
Unleash the fury, Mitch.
Unleash the fury!
On Hail Varsity Radio.
It's Hour 2. It's Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager, Schmidt and Elijah Herbel. We welcome in with The Athletic. It's Mitch Sherman time. At Mitch Sherman on Twitter's where you follow him. Mitch, how's the week going? Good to spend a few minutes. Thanks for the time.
Yeah, going well. How are you, Schmitty?
We're hanging in. We're a little distraught by the early tip-off time tonight, which means we can't motor on down to PBA. That said, should be a good environment for Nebraska basketball. I want to get your thoughts on some hoops.
Fire up the Peacock.
Yeah, I know. It's a good thing my wife subscribed to watch Office reruns and what's the show that is no longer, but it went for 11 years. You had Al Bundy was in it. It wasn't Al Bundy, but it was
Malcolm in the Middle?
No.
I mean, if you're talking about Al Bundy, I can answer that, but I really don't have any other way of knowing what show you're talking about.
It's Ed O'Neill. Modern Family.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, it's good. But so she'll park it on the couch when she's not doing the nurse thing, and it's just always on Peacock. But she originally got it so she could watch Michigan State. So. And
now it's all about, well, there you go. Now it's all about Big Ten basketball.
It is. So we lucked into that, and I don't even have to pay for it. So Nebraska and Juwan Gary, he's warming up. Looks, at least in the reports we got via text, things are looking okay, but we don't have a declaration yet. But what's your concern level for Nebraska basketball? Have they proven enough to you to be a team that you're confident in at home, or is it just a matter of hey, it's Big Ten basketball. Anyone can win home or away on a given night?
I feel pretty good about the Huskers at home. I would feel better about the team overall if they had broken through at some point in the Big Ten on the road, and they had their opportunity on the night that Gary got hurt at Rutgers. And, if lots of ifs, but if he doesn't go down in that game, and I think Nebraska should just be happy that the injury was not what it appeared when it happened, and that if he's just missing one game, then that's a gift. That's quite a fortuitous event for the Huskers, the way that it looked at Rutgers. That looked like it was going to be a disastrous night between Gary's injury and the overtime loss. So if they had done just like one little thing on the road, maybe won the Minnesota game, but then if you win the Minnesota game, you come back home as Michigan State, does it happen the same way? I don't necessarily think it does. I think that lit a fire under them, and they carried it to K-State. They can win on the road in the Big 12, but they can't win on the road in the Big 10 yet. So I think they're going to have to get over that hump, because at some point they're going to hit a speed bump at home, and you probably just need to win on the road to have that feather in your cap, in your resume when it comes Selection Sunday. This is not going to be a team that goes and runs away and hides with a seed. They're not going to be like safe as a 5 seed or a 6 seed. I think it's just they're going to be riding on the edge all season, and if they can show the ability to win on the road in the Big Ten and hold serve at home, then that will help them.
Mitch, do you get to feel that Fred Hoiberg's feeling the pressure of this season and the pressure of making the tournament right now?
I'm sure he is. I haven't been around them enough and around him enough, other than seeing his press conferences, to know he's an even-keeled guy. I mean, whether it's winning against Purdue or losing the couple that they did after that, or there were a lot of emotions and various things happening in the arena against Northwestern on Saturday. And Fred, he kind of stays himself. But yeah, I mean, he's been here for a while and hasn't taken a team to the postseason. And he's got a postseason team this season. And I do. I think he feels pressure to deliver an NCAA tournament team. That's what they brought him here to do, was to repeat some of the success that he had at Iowa State. And, you hire a former NBA head coach, somebody with his pedigree, and there's expectations, and they paid him in a way that produced expectations. So, sure. And it's probably a good kind of pressure. He's somebody who's shown through his career, be it as a player or a coach, that he can handle pressure and he thrives in pressure, and he's got to pass that on to his team, and that's what he's working to do here in the middle of January, or getting into late January.
Mitch Sherman with us, few minutes, Hail Varsity Radio, and Mitch with The Athletic on Twitter at Mitch Sherman. Mitch, going to go to football now, and your latest story on The Athletic talks about the early enrollees and what they bring to Nebraska. And from a position group standpoint, you have some depth, you have some talent, you also have some experience. But Nebraska has been strategic here, now going into year 2 with Matt Rule, Mitch, and just finding and plugging some holes. Let's expand on that a little bit, specifically at wide receiver, with the combination of your 2 portal additions and that talented youth you have in the room, now taking a step into that second season. And also the offensive line, a lot of combined starts, and then you're sprinkling in another talented transfer. Are those 2 position groups? I'm leaving quarterback off the table, of course, for now, but wideout and O-line, do you like where Nebraska's at? What can those transfers do this week and beyond here as Nebraska gears up for spring?
Yeah, with the O-line, it's about the transfer, Micah Mazuka from Florida, when you're looking at the early enrollees. I think it's beneficial to have the early enrolling offensive linemen coming into the program, Gibson Pyle and Grant Bricks, but ideally those players, and I think those players, barring just a run of injuries, they're gonna have the luxury to be able to redshirt next year. Maybe they get in 4 games or 3 games, but you're not wanting to play true freshman offensive linemen in the Big Ten. So the big change up front on offense with what you've done in this group of early enrollees is you've added an offensive guard who started for 2 years, one in the Big 12, one in the SEC, and it has been one of the more effective O-linemen at each of those programs, at Baylor and at Florida. So that makes an instant impact on the Nebraska offensive line, and it's great to have him now because he gets to go through the rigors of a winter in Lincoln, and we saw last year how that builds the team, and it's a chemistry thing, it's a bonding thing. You know, we're going to be hearing about the mat drills coming up here, and they break into teams. I think they've already started to do that and have competitions against each other. That's an important part of the calendar year and what Nebraska wants to do, what Matt Rule wants to do with this program. So any of the early enrollees who are a part of that, it's helpful. For the ones who they're going to rely on to play in 2024, it's doubly or triply, if that's a word, helpful. At wide receiver, yeah, I mean, you got two seniors, a fifth-year senior and a sixth-year senior, in Jamal Banks and Isaiah Nair, coming from Wake Forest in Texas. So, again, major conferences, big programs. In the case of Banks, he's got experience in the Power Five of being a highly targeted receiver. He's had success against top 25 teams. He knows the competition level. So, absolutely. I mean, those guys may walk out on the field on practice number 1 in the spring and be expected, I'm talking about the two wide receivers, to lead that group. So, it's of great importance to have them here in January and be pointing toward 2024, the fall of 24.
Mitch Sherman with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. And Mitch, as we talk about early enrollees, I think we have to talk about Carter Nelson because he's not going to be an early enrollee. But based on what we saw in the All-America Bowl, the Polynesian Bowl, seems to be a guy that could be in line for early playing time. Does that change to you, considering the fact he's not an early enrollee? What does that mean to you, Carter Nelson, waiting until summer to show up? He's got a couple titles he wants to defend in track and field, and he wants to play basketball as well, complete his season. But how big of a loss is that for the Husker football team, the fact that Carter Nelson isn't an early enrollee?
Well, you want what's best. Nebraska wanted what was best for him, and it was best for him and in his hometown in Ainsworth to finish the year there. I mean, it's such a huge part of that school, and certainly his senior class. And it's not like he's from a senior class of 300 or 400 kids where you take one guy out, even if it's a big important person, and you don't notice the difference. They would know they deserve Carter for another spring in Ainsworth. For all that Ainsworth is giving to Nebraska over the next several years, it's important for him to be there this spring. If he was here in Lincoln this spring, would he help his cause to be able to step right in and play early in his true freshman year? Yeah, he would. And you saw that last year. Like you can look on the defensive side with the players who were physically ready. And, you can see Prince Will, you can see Cam Lenhart. Those guys, they were here in the spring. They made an impact in the spring game and the spring practice. And then they were the ones at the beginning of the year who were ready to play defensively. But it's not impossible. Riley Van Poppel is an example of a guy at the same position. It's probably a harder position, defensive line, to step into as a true freshman than what Carter Nelson's going to play on the offensive side. And he was able to handle it, and he impacted the Nebraska football team in a big way in his true freshman season. So Carter can do it. I think we've seen his athleticism now, playing in the All-American Bowl, playing in the Polynesian Bowl. He made plays in both of those games that stood out, where he separated himself from some of the best players in high school football, and you had to pay attention to what he was doing. So he's going to continue to he'll have the weight program and the lifting program and the nutrition program. Nothing duplicates being in Lincoln and being a part of the program, but they're going to do everything they can from a distance to help him start to get ready. And then when he comes to town at the end of May or the beginning of June, it's with the intention to help this team next year. I think he can, just based on his athleticism. It'll be an adjustment for him coming from 8-man football, but I think he started to show already in the All-Star games that it's something he can do.
Mitch, I want to ask you about Dylan Raiola, and what do you imagine his to-do list is this first week?
Well, he needs to get moved into his dorm.
Gotta get his books.
He needs to figure out, he needs to figure out where the food is. How does he get to his classes? We know he's been in class, so he's got to get the route down. Everything that a freshman who's coming in has to deal with. I don't imagine it's a lot about football in the first days, to be honest. And it's going to turn to football, and it's going to be his focus. But he's got the normal student stuff to go through first, and some of his freshman classmates, the early enrollees, they got a little bit of a head start on him. Now, they didn't go to class until Monday, but maybe they walked off the paces between their dorm and where their English comp class was. So he's got to deal with that. I know that's not what you're asking, so I just spent 2 minutes.
Thank you, though.
Just talking for no reason, but yeah, he's going to want to meet his position coach. Maybe they've met, but he's going to want to spend some time with Glenn Thomas and start to develop a bond and some chemistry, because that's the guy on this Nebraska staff who's going to be charged with developing Dylan Raiola and Daniel Kalin. And I think he's going to want to start to hang out with his teammates more than he has and get that bonding process going. As they get closer to spring, then I think the attention will turn more to playbook. Surely he's already got it, and he's looking it over. But he doesn't have to know it tomorrow. He doesn't have to know it next week or even March 1st. He's got time, and the spring is going to be really big for that. But I think it's just about getting acclimated and becoming a student and getting to know his teammates and his position coach and feeling comfortable in Lincoln, and then he can move on to the really in the weeds football stuff.
This week, do you think Dylan Raiola opened a textbook or a playbook first?
I think he probably opened a playbook first, because they sent that thing to him, I'm guessing on the day that he signed, and he's been in Lincoln, he's been in the football complex, whether it's to visit his uncle or to help with recruiting, and you can bet that he's watched some film and they've had that playbook out. So probably didn't start to open the textbooks until yesterday or maybe Sunday night when he made it back from Hawaii.
Oh, it's syllabus week, Mitch. You don't open those things till next week at least.
You're probably right. It's been a long time since I had a textbook, so I think you're right.
Mitch Sherman's with us from The Athletic at Mitch Sherman on Twitter, where you follow him.
In some classes, you never even open those textbooks,
Well, that we're not all blessed with the memory of Elijah Herbel.
It's not that. It's about prioritization in college.
Yes. So, Mitch, what's coming up from The Athletic? What's on the docket for you, man?
Just continuing to look at the beginning of this semester and what questions Nebraska could answer in the early days of this 2024 team being together. I'll have something this week stepping out of Nebraska sports, Nebraska football, certainly, on what's happening in Omaha tomorrow night with the Omaha Supernovas debuting as the Pro Volleyball Federation is debuting, and there's an ex-Husker, Gina Mancuso-Prozowski, on that team, and some world-class volleyball players. It'll be a big night in downtown Omaha tomorrow night with the Supernovas getting started. So I'm going to look a little bit at that and the momentum that has been generated in that sport, and you can trace it back. Well, you can trace it back a long ways, but a big moment for the energy around the sport of volleyball this year over the last several months is what happened at Memorial Stadium on August 30th. So there's a Nebraska connection to that story, but it's really about that sport in this country and how it's changing.
Mitch, 10 seconds. Do we have a Chargers announcement with Harbaugh by the end of the week?
End of the week being Saturday, I will say yes. Okay. It's only Tuesday right now. We got some time. I think it's going to happen, guys.
All right. Mitch, we'll check in with you on the Average Joe's, buddy. Thanks for the time.
All right. Good to talk to you guys. We did get a Brian Callahan announcement, so we'll talk about that when we next convene.
Hail Varsity Radio is live. Now, back to Schmitty.
Schmitty's a great guy, but he don't have a brain.
And Elijah.
You want me to speak? When I point at you, yeah.
On Hail Varsity Radio.
Big thanks to Mitch Sherman. Get the podcast, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager, Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. And we say hi to Connor Clark, who is at PBA and at C_Clark_27 from the announcer's booth against Northwestern to Media Row for KFOR. We check in with Connor. Connor, you've done extensive research. Your gut says what about Juwan Gary?
It's a great question. I'm still on the train if I'd be surprised if he plays tonight. And that's just because, for me, it goes back to Saturday's result. If you don't win that game, if you're Nebraska, I think there's a higher probability that he does see the floor tonight. But when you come off of a win at home without him, first of all, and you were used to playing with him for a month and a half, you come out, you win that game, you prove that you can win a home conference game without him. I think you try and do that again here tonight. I don't really see a reason to rush him back and try and, not play a 100% healthy Juwan Gary, because at the end of the day, he's going to be needed big time down the stretch of this season. And I don't know if it's really worth it to try and throw him out there here tonight. If he's good enough to go, that's awesome. If he's on a minute restriction, okay, great. But to me, my gut says he's probably not going to play. I'd be surprised if he did.
Yeah, you said to us going through layup lines, it appeared that he was a little ginger on that calf. Does that sound about right to you? It doesn't look like he's 100% yet?
Yeah, that's what I would say. I mean, usually he would be pretty explosive going to the rim, and I know it's warm-ups, but to me, it just felt like he was kind of taking it a little bit easier than kind of everybody else in the normal warm-up group. He was stretching out the calf. He was wearing the sleeve. He was dressed as if he was going to play. He had the uniform shorts on and everything, but he's been in the locker room probably for the last 20 minutes or so I'm assuming this is the final decision period. But yeah, it didn't look like he was, 100% exploded to the rim, all that good stuff. Again, my gut feeling, I'd be surprised if we saw him, and that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Is Mr. Miyagi in the building?
I can't say he is, but he may show up before the season ends. I don't know.
Connor, do you have your cups ready? That's all you need. A little flames of cups?
I got my water bottle. Can you do something with that? I don't know.
Cotter, let's talk Ohio State. I saw your write-up for Stephen Bardo's podcast, super impressive. And as you look at this matchup here, Buckeyes are talented. And I was talking with Elijah, and they, like, Rutgers is scrappy and athletic and tough. Ohio State is scrappy, athletic, and tough, and there's a little more basketball skill on their roster. A big three-headed monster Nebraska's got to figure out.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough test here tonight. I think we're going to see a game very similar to what we saw on Saturday. Maybe not in the fashion that it was played, but the result is going to be close. It's going to be Bruce Thornton and Jamison battle for Ohio State here tonight. Bruce Thornton's averaging 16 a game. Has been phenomenal all year long for Ohio State. A veteran guy on this Ohio State roster, at least comparatively when you look at the transfer portal. And then Jamison Battle, who's a familiar face, played at Minnesota the last couple of years, came to PBA last year. He beat the Huskers in the first round of the Big Ten tournament a season ago as well. He's averaging 14.4 a game. He leads the Big Ten in made threes. He's got 53 of them this year. So he's a flamethrower beyond the arc. And when it comes to the metrics, and this gets weighed in a lot when it comes to the NCAA tournament, they're 10 spots ahead of Nebraska. They're 46 in the net. Nebraska at 56 coming into this game tonight. So this may not be a quad one opportunity for Nebraska at home, but it's a quad 2-1, and that's something that you can make the argument that Nebraska needs more because they're 0-2 in that quadrant of the net ranking. So this is going to be a close game. This is a tough Ohio State team that's coming in here, coming off of a pretty nice win against Penn State over the weekend. Now, a tough turnaround. They got to come back and travel on short notice. But this is going to be a really tough Ohio State team to put away, especially if you don't have Juwan Gary. So it's going to be a good contest here tonight. The Huskers are definitely going to have their hands full.
I want you to look at it from each side here quickly, Connor. First, from Nebraska's point of view, what about Ohio State and how they play should worry the Huskers in terms of concern that it might get out of hand? On the flip side, what does Nebraska do well that you think might be a concern for Ohio State in tonight's game?
Yeah, Ohio State is a good rebounding team. And so if you're Nebraska, you want to avoid Rutgers 2.0 at all costs, right? And again, Juwan Gary factors into that. I was surprised we didn't see Montar Jope at all on Saturday. If it starts to get out of hand on the boards, we may see him here tonight if Juwan Gary is not going. But I'd say that's the biggest area of concern. And obviously you got to lock down on Battle, who's a shooter, as I mentioned, Bruce Thornton, who's their leading scorer. But rebounding is going to be a premium here tonight. And then for Nebraska, they've shot the ball pretty well in this building this year. So if they continue to do that and shoot the three pretty efficiently and get their looks, I mean, they had their looks all day long against Northwestern. They just kind of thought a little bit too much. Fred Hoiberg said that in the post-game presser. They were playing in a crowd a little bit too much, making one more extra pass that maybe wasn't necessary. So just take what the defense gives you. I know that's very coach speak of me on offense, but they've shot the ball well in this building. If they continue to do that, they have a pretty good chance to win here tonight.
Connor Clark with us on site at PBA as he's doing a live shot here on the stream, Hail Varsity YouTube channel and Hail Varsity Radio Twitter feed at HVarsity Radio. Tip-off a little under 30 minutes right now. Is it empty seat night? I know it's a fashionably late arriving PBA crowd. You got to finish up that Morgan and Diet across the way in the rail yard, and you make the mad dash by the anthem time. But how's the energy? How's the buzz right now? Not yours.
Student section, zero, unfortunately. But the student section is pretty full, and it's been pretty full for probably since the 45-minute mark on the clock. The students are ready to get back to this building, ready to get back courtside. The energy from them is going to be there. More and more folks are starting to file in here throughout the main bowl, but it's kind of what you'd expect with 23 minutes left on the clock here at PBA, as you mentioned, Schmidt. More so of a late arriving crowd usually here, but I don't really have a doubt that this is going to be a good crowd. I mean, it was a great crowd on Saturday, and I thought people were going to get steered away because of how cold it was. It's no longer that cold, so I think it's going to be a good crowd here tonight. Students are back. Everybody knows this is a big game, and chance to get to 15-5 if you're Nebraska. That's your best 20-game start in 23 years. So this is a massive game. I think people are going to show out for it.
Connor, before we get you out of here, we're going to get your score prediction here in just a little bit because, steak and a beer with this Texas Longhorns mug. We've been working through it. We think loser chooses the shot that is taken.
And it's a clean glass.
Fine.
Connor's with me. Connor's with me in terms of the dirtiness adds a little bit of punishment to it. But, Connor, I want you to give us potential X factors for Nebraska in this game. Nebraska gets it done. I guess the question is just that. Who is a potential X factor for Nebraska? It feels like they've needed it, whether it be C.J. Wilcher off the bench, Casey getting hot at the right time, Sam Hoiberg in his defense, Juwan Gary in his rebounding. It feels like when they get wins, they have an X factor type performance. Who do you think are some candidates tonight?
I mean, the obvious answer is Casey, but I'm going to steer away from that. And a guy that you just mentioned, Elijah, I think CJ off the bench is going to be big, especially, again, if you have no Juwan Gary. I mean, he's been phenomenal this year. The jump he has made from last year to this year is something I didn't really see coming, and he's been great. He shot the ball really well. He's shooting around 59% in his last 8 games. He's averaging over 12 points a game in his last 8 games. So I think him coming off the bench, if he can have a nice shooting night, and we saw that against Purdue too, and he wasn't the only X factor. That was a very big team effort, but he came off the bench against Purdue and shot the ball lights out, was awesome defensively as well. So I think C.J. Wilcher is going to be my guy to keep an eye out. Obviously, you have your usual suspects, Tominaga, Williams, Math. But if you want to go outside the box, I'm going to go C.J. Wilcher.
Who gets battle? Who has that charge?
Now, that's a good question because, again, if Juwan Gary's healthy, that's where my mind goes. But you're probably going to see Bryce Williams on him a little bit. I would go C.J. Wilcher. We'll probably see him a little bit as well off the bench. Those will probably be your 2 main suspects on him. If they get into foul trouble, we'll see, because that can get interesting because Battle is not a short guy by any means, about 6'7". Watching him warm up earlier, he was taller than I expected. So those are my 2 guys who are going to have to try and chase Battle around that 3-point.
Now, Connor, we asked this question to Mitch regarding Dylan Raiola. I asked him, do you think he opened a playbook or a textbook first this week? And I'm going to ask the same question to you, but not a playbook. The basketball stat sheet. What did you check out first here in your first week back on campus? Was it the basketball stat sheet or was it a textbook? Be honest with us.
Oh, it's absolutely bracketology. I can't lie about it. It's absolutely bracketology and getting ready for tonight's game.
Do you buy okay, and Mitch had a good take on, whether Nebraska's safe or not. Too much season left to deem them safe permanently right now. As it sits tonight, what do you believe? Do you believe they're a 10 seed, an 11 seed, a play-in, bubble? What does the Connor Clark bracketology say?
I would probably put them at a 10. I've seen multiple brackets with them at a 9. I've seen as high as an 8. I think that might be a little high. I've seen some as an 11, but I think right now, after Saturday's win, they're off the bubble. I think they're in as a 10. Now, if they lose tonight, I think they're right back on the bubble. And as you said, Smitty, too much season left right now for me to say there are a lot of Big Ten season left to play. You got a lot of road games left on the schedule too, i.e. Saturday at Maryland. That's going to be a tough one as well. So take care of business here. I feel obviously more confident about it, but right now, too much season left to say this team's absolutely a lock for the field of 68. But as they look right now, obviously in a position to put themselves there here in a couple of weeks.
Purdue, Wisconsin, Illinois, Northwestern, Nebraska, Sparty. And I know Sparty needs to get it into gear, but who's in right now?
Ohio State's on that bubble, too.
Yeah, Ohio State's right there. They're probably in front of Sparty.
Yeah, I would go Purdue, Illinois, Wisconsin, Nebraska. I would put Michigan State in there. The metrics have loved their resume thus far. Their strength of schedule is really, really high this year. So I would still go Michigan State in there. Ohio State, currently on the wrong side of the bubble, but can easily put themselves on the right side of that bubble as well. And Northwestern obviously still has a lot to play for, a lot of meaning left in Evanston. So that's probably your group of 6 or 7.
I think Northwestern gets the nod right now along with Nebraska because they're the two teams that have wins over the number 1 overall seed. Connor will check in later. Quick score.
I'm going to go Nebraska edges one out here. I'm going to go 74-68.
Win and cover, says Connor Clark. Connor, be good. Thanks so much.
Appreciate you, fellas.
All right, there he is, Connor Clark at PBA, Nebraska-Ohio State. We'll hear from Fred next. It's Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Winding down a Tuesday, it's Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager. Be sure to find the podcast, subscribe, and give us a review, good, bad, or ugly. Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel can watch the show. Check it out. Hail Varsity YouTube, Hail Varsity Radio Twitter, and at HVarsity Radio. Give Elijah a follow at Herbal Essence, at Schmidt_radio. Commentary from Elijah, and, of course, bowling league updates tonight from one Elijah Herbel. I will maybe check in. We should do a halftime hit. Like a halftime reaction?
From basketball?
Yes, for basketball.
The problem being I will still be here and I don't have Peacock. Dual problem.
Yes. Forget about it. Maybe I can sneak your mama's login.
I'm sure I can find something online that'll have the game.
Yeah? Oh, you are going to get creative.
Oh, I will get creative.
You and OJ with the old stolen splice cable,
actually,
allegedly.
I'm not sure I'll easily be able to find that, but I will. I have confidence in my own abilities.
And your dark web connections.
No, it's not the dark web.
No?
It's like the European web.
Ah. It's Angry Stepbrother.
America has no jurisdiction there.
So I know what you're doing. Good work. Reminder to buckle up. Do not break the law this way. Make sure you're buckled. Use your seatbelt. It saves lives. It prevents injuries only if properly worn. Make it click. A message from the NDOT Highway Safety Office. Let's hear from Fred, the mayor, getting PBA going as Nebraska-Ohio State. And it's all about business. Try business approach. And Nebraska going to take that tonight. We'll see if it follows through with it.
I think the guys have been locked in these last couple days. Yesterday we didn't go too long or hard just because it was the day after a game. We went a little harder than we normally do because it was an early one. But we're back to early practices now with school back in session. Today we got them up and down as we always do after a lighter day. And, just a quick update on Juwan. He did some work mostly in the half court. So it'll be a day tomorrow where we'll test him a little bit more and shoot around and see where he is. But he did not get any up and down full court reps today. and where he's getting a little bit of extra work right now, non-contact, and then we'll see where he is. But he's doing significantly better than where he was even the last couple days, and obviously when it happened at Rutgers when he was in a boot and on crutches and putting no weight on it. So we feel good about where he is, but we want to be smart at the same time. So it'll be a game time decision what you want tomorrow.
Kind of painted that picture for you. It's the last few minutes of evaluation, and Carter will probably get a tweet ready to go right before tip. We'll see how much and if any Gary goes tonight.
And we do know the starting lineup has been released. He's not in the starting lineup. That wasn't really expected by any means anyway with his questionable status.
Juan, you good? Hustle on out there. We need 38 minutes. So you have Fred, and turnovers were a problem, man. There were 17 of them against Northwestern, and honestly, the turnovers really almost cost Nebraska the game. The defense stepped up. Nebraska had the one field goal and some free throws, and that was it. The final 9.5 minutes, can't do that tonight, but turnovers, a premium tonight, says Fred.
We were playing in a crowd way too much, and, it was over-penetration, one extra dribble, trying to play in small spaces, trying to slip the ball into small gaps. We were just in too much of a hurry when we got into the crowd, and give Northwestern credit, they really ramped it up, but we had a lot of opportunities to make simple plays, and when we did, we got really good looks. When we had ball fakes, we got really good looks, and it's when you face pressure like that, really you should salivate, and you should be able to use that pressure against them if you play smart. And I just didn't think we played very smart when it came to our turnovers. When we did get a shot up, it was generally a pretty high quality look. I think we shot 55% overall from the field and 7 of 13 from three, and did a really good job of getting it into the paint early and in establishing that. So as the game went on, in the second half, you looked at the first 12 minutes, we took really good care of the ball. And then the last 8, that's when we got sloppy, and, some were just flat out unforced. Bryce had a one-hand pass on the perimeter that Barnheiser stole and got a layup that cut it to 1. And that was after a couple other possessions where we just, again, dribbled too much into a crowd. So, it's just about keeping your spacing, staying poised, using your ball fakes, and being fundamental. And, obviously we watched every one of those in the film session that next morning, but we're going to have to be better than that. You can't turn it over 18 times and expect to win. Now, we did a much better job in the glass, and we were plus 14 at a double-digit rebound advantage, and that helps make up for the turnovers. And the other thing we did, when we made simple, solid plays, we had 18 assists in that game, and I think 12 and 16 baskets in the first half. So, it's about just doing the things that make you successful. You don't have to go out there and hit home runs. You hit singles and make the right play, and generally good things happen.
Elijah, it's easy to say, but Nebraska's, there's a point in time within the flow of a ball game, and Minnesota found it, Iowa found it, Rutgers found it, and Nebraska's, whoever's handling the ball, be it Bryce or Jamarcus, they're doing their best. They're not completely comfortable. They'll be more comfortable as their career moves forward, and I know Bryce has got a handful of games left at PBA, and Jamarcus is still a young pup. But, if Nebraska had a point guard this year, I know we've said it till we're blue in the face, but just even to get into some rhythm offensively to set the table, this team could go from bubble to special. And it raises its ugly head from time to time, that point guard by committee that Nebraska's dealing with.
And it's an issue where it's guys that in tight moments on a scoring drought, the team's on a run, maybe they flip to a 2-3 zone, where it feels like someone tries to do too much with it. Similar to Adrian Martinez late in football games back in his year starting for Nebraska. Trying to do too much feels to be the issue. And I've said it before that it feels like Nebraska needs somebody they can turn to in those moments, but Kisei tends to put up some shots that the selection is questionable. Bryce Williams tends to drive into traffic, get 3 guys collapsed down on him. He gets a shot rejected down low, and Jamarcus Lawrence tends to step into a contested mid-range jumper that's not the shot you want. But each of them has their own issues in those moments, but all of them seem to force it in their own way whenever the game gets tight, whenever things aren't going your way and you really need a bucket, which if Nebraska get one of those guys that could consistently step up, let the game come to them and knock down a shot, it feels completely different. But right now they seem to be forcing it in those moments and really taking shots that are digging you deeper and deeper into that hole.
Well, Nebraska at home, they found ways to respond, grow a lead, blow some people out, or just hang on for dear life. Any way you cut it, you'll take it because you've done so well at home, aside from Creighton. And one player to watch tonight is Battle, the standout from Minnesota. Can we squeeze this in, cut 5?
We're going to be real tight. Let's save it for 50.
All right. We'll hear Fred's take on Battle. Thornton, of course, their leading scorer. Battle, their leading three-point shooter. And quite honestly, I mean, what's Nebraska's plus-minus look like when it comes to rebounding tonight? What's Nebraska's plus-minus at assist turnovers? And what's the turnover numbers? And do they keep this clip up? They have shot incredible, really, since the Michigan State game. They shot damn near 70% in the first half against Northwestern. Ended the game at 55% because of some of those questionable shots Elijah talked about. Now, Nebraska's nailed some really tough shots all year to kind of seal the deal. We'll wind down at Tuesday next.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, it's Hail Varsity, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. Subscribe and give us a rating with the podcast. Like and tell a friend. Subscribe to Hail Varsity YouTube. Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt, as it is Nebraska and Ohio State, PBA, Peacock. And let's hear the Jamison battle. And it's going to be Jamarcus Lawrence, but here's a little bit of Fred on the guy they got to shut down tonight, 1 of 3.
He's playing really good right now. He's knocking down his shots at a high rate, over 40% from 3, and he's got great athleticism. And they're using him really well. I think Chris does a good job getting those guys going, getting those guys shot. So we know who he is. We played against him a lot, and you just can't let him get comfortable. You have to contest everything at the level. He's got great size at 6'7", and he's a good finisher in the paint with size and athleticism. So again, just biggest thing is Northwestern. We talked about it. Almost isn't good enough. We were almost there in the first 4 threes that they made, but not quite there to the level to run them off the line. And you absolutely have to do that with Battle.
So they shut down Boo Buie. That really affected Northwestern. Last saw it here, Nebraska's offense right at an 80-point clip. Fred talked about how that offense has really kind of thrived this year.
The thing I've been pleased with offensively, I think the unselfishness of this group, and that's the frustration for me with the turnovers. When you shoot 55%, you have to have as many opportunities and get a quality shot up every possession. And when we've done that, we've had really good, efficient offense. I think our movement has been really good this year, and we've been getting the ball side to side. The defense has been shifted. We've been playing inside out quite a bit and finding the right guys. When CJ gets it going, our guys have done a nice job finding him. When Casey gets it going, our guys have looked for him. Rink, when he's had his games, our guys have done a really good job finding him. Bryce, same way. So it's just been a really good, unselfish group that's had great balance. And it's not the same guy every night. We've had multiple guys that have the opportunity and the ability to get it going. Juwan's had a few of those games. Josiah leads us in scoring in the last one. And that's a great luxury to have when you have multiple guys out there that can make a play and make a shot. And we've tried to have good versatility with the skill set of the player that we're trying to get into this program. And I've really liked the way that our guys are playing on that end. And most of it's been because they've been unselfish.
Stats say 78-76 Nebraska. What say you, Elijah Herbel? Or I can go first.
Oh, please.
Steak and a beer. Give me Nebraska by the hair on their chitty chin chin, but the Buckeyes absolutely cover 71-68.
What is the line right now?
3.5.
3.5? I think Nebraska covers via the free throw battle late.
Okay.
I think it's a close game. I think Nebraska ends up winning it 76-71 via free throws.
Okay. Ohio State shoots pretty well from the free throw line.
But I think it's going to be Nebraska getting sent to the free throw line late, and I think they go ice the game from the line and cover the spread with that.
Is Ohio State the first team to roll into PBA and go off from three-point land? Creighton kind of did for a while, but overall, I think they were 12 of 39 or something like that. But
it ended up being Nebraska's bad shooting from three in that game more than Creighton's good shooting.
Fair. Well, see if Nebraska can stay on the right side of the bubble tonight. Plenty more opportunity as they head to Fear the Turtle Land.
As a secondary follow-up, Juwan Gary over under 15 minutes played tonight. Let's go 13.5. Over under 13.5.
We'll go under.
I'll go over.
If they get a lead early and can hang on and not use them as much, great. Talk tomorrow at 4. Thanks.